those individuals and ban them from the opportunity to return to their communities to become productive members of society, to provide for themselves and their families, you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have dire consequences in those communities. At Cook County government, as one example, one of the differences that a chief executive officer, in this case President Tony Krupwinkle, did with support of several commissioners was begin reducing the level of the number of people incarcerated, detained at Cook County Jail. We reduced it over the past 2 years from 10,000 to about 8,500 people and going down at the present time. How? By using her office as a bully pulpit, by analyzing how people are arrested and incarcerated, and by being cognizant that poor people are always at a disadvantage in terms of access to legal counsel. In other words, you do an environmental analysis of what occurs and you take action on it. That is an example of the type of policy that you don't need legislation for, that a good disposition on the part of a leader can impact communities in a positive way.
Professor Beverly. In the past 4 years, a number of mental health facilities in the city have been closed under this mayor. Community mental health in this community is a critical need. Have you given any consideration to how you might provide the services that are needed? Does that involve reopening these facilities or outsourcing, or have you given any thought to it?
I have given a lot of thought to it. I've met with the mental health advocate community, a very vocal and active constituency, and I have told them that when I am elected mayor, I will reopen those clinics. Let me share with you why I think they need to be open. Because when we close them, you cut people off from the professional attention that they need and deserve. You also make it more difficult for them to obtain their medications. And you know where they wind up? They wind up at Cook County Jail. Cook County Jail is in my 7th district, and they overwhelm the health system in the jail, and as a consequence, the Freemake Hospital at Cook County Jail is the largest provider of mental health services. Those are not the best conditions to be providing mental health services to affected individuals and their families.
Commissioner, you know what I'm getting ready to ask? What?
How are you going to pay for it? ¿Cómo vas a pagar por eso? Right? That's what your wife would ask. I would pay for the savings that were alleged to be had have been minuscule. The suffering that people have endured have been huge. The cost to Cook County has more than quadrupled for having to provide the services. Charles, it's a question of priorities. Remember what I will do. I will stop the use of taxpayer dollars to fund the cronies and the connected, the wealthy individuals, and we will divert that money to the neighborhood. This is one potential use of tax increment dollars.
Okay. You talk about the cronies who are getting money from the Rahm Emanuel administration. Name one. Give me a crony.
Ken Griffin, the wealthiest man in Illinois. You want another one? Penny Pritzker. Yeah, the hotel chain that they run.
See any out there in the audience? Any cronies?
None that I recognize.
Never mind. We don't want to go there. Rob, what do you say?
I have a stack of great questions from the audience, and this one I want a really brief answer. I don't want well, maybe, and if. You've already talked about some creative ways to increase some types of sales taxes. Is a property tax increase on the table when you get in office and see all these deficits from the Chicago Public Schools to the pensions? Is a property tax increase on the table?
I do not see a property tax increase as a viable option at this point because we have not seen the books. People are entitled to see that. Robin, would you buy a house simply by driving down the street and how it looks outside? No. You would want to go inside and you'd want to check the plumbing. You'd want to check the electricity. You'd want to check the water. You want to see if there's flooding in the basement.
Well, I have to say, it sounds like, Miss, hello. I have to say that it sounds like you're setting us up for a Ronner moment. I didn't know it was this bad. Then you get in office and say, well, we're going to have to cut this, and I can't do that I promised, and because you're saying, I'm not sure what's there. So somewhere there must be some intelligence that gives you some idea of what you might have to do.
I'd like to tell you that I have that intelligence. I can't. We have not seen the books. There aren't independently audited statements, and we need to see what's there.
How many
I can't tell you, Charles, I can't tell you that the financial plan that I put forth, 18 pages long, go on my website, read it. It's a solid financial plan, will save Chicagoans $500 million in savings through efficiencies, shared services, and by working collaboratively between the city, park district, city colleges. Okay? Those are the sister agencies that appear on people's tax bills when they get their property taxes. And they were increased 11% over the past 4 years.
You know, the last politician that I remember who said that he wanted to raise taxes, I think he's sitting at home in Galewood right now. Right? The governor, former governor. So, I mean, but politicians just aren't going to tell us if they're going to raise taxes anymore. Right.
We're going to make some really tough decisions that everyone is going to be angry about. No doubt about that. Tough medicine to be swallowed. Just being candid.
All right, thank you very much. We still have 1,000 tweets at hashtag CSU votes. So I'm going to have your best tweet for me, please, Jasmine.
All right. It says, what is your position on hospitals with trauma centers being so far away from the South Side of Chicago?
Question.
The University of Chicago should open a full trauma center for Chicago's South Side.
Okay, that's a nice brief answer. Maybe we get one more tweet in. Stand up, sir. Tell me your name.
Yes, my name is Darren Martin. I'm a senior at Chicago State University, and I major in early childhood education.
Beautiful. What's your best tweet?
My best tweet from Mr. Garcia is, Chewy, how will you take on the council heavyweights like Ed Burke?
Remember, Chicago, you already made history by forcing the first mayoral runoff in Chicago history. 55% of the voters voted for change. 2, as a result of that, there are 19 council seats hanging in the balance. Chicagoans want change. I think the next mayor and the Chicago City Council will be a much more responsive body. We will work collaboratively. That has been my approach over the life of the time that I've been in office.
Right. As I said, I have a handful of questions. We are at a university. What plans do you have to sustain the quality of higher education at universities in Chicago that are going to be impacted by the 30% budget cut proposed by Governor Ronner?
As someone who got their education because of public universities in Illinois, the first one in my family, 3 kids who attended public schools in Chicago, I understand their role and their importance. I will work with people in Chicago and people in higher education throughout Illinois to make sure that the General Assembly does not approve the proposed budget cuts to higher education.
Can I ask one? I got a question for you. You know, I asked you this question earlier today, and I'd like you to answer it in front of the people here tonight. You are getting most of your money and a lot of ground troops from the Chicago Teachers Union. But for those of us who are not in the Teachers Union or whatever, I mean, we want to know how you are going to negotiate a new contract with the teachers. Are you going to give away the store? That's what a lot of people worry about, Commissioner. Are you going to give away the store?
There is no store to be given away. There is no store to be given away. No one has that illusion, first of all. We're in dire financial straits. Well, tonight they should take me at my word. There's no store to be given away. Things are in a very, very difficult position. But Charles, you left out the transit workers. You left out the nurses, you left out the truck drivers, you left out a whole lot of other workers. But the bottom line here is people want change in Chicago. That's why we have the present predicament, and that's why we're moving forward April 7th because people are tired of the tale of two cities. People want equity, people want opportunity, and they want neighborhood revitalization. It's not my fault.
I want to make sure we get our honor students in, and let's get one more tweet. Lisa, honor student here at Chicago State, studying
communications.
beautiful communicating.
Yes. So, Mr. Chewy, black contractors and developers are overwhelmingly excluded from city contracts. What are your plans to remove these barriers?
My plans are to do just as you said. I stand for equity. I stand for fairness. We will overcome all of the barriers that previous administrations have not been able to do. Why should you trust me? It's my life's work. I fought for equality of opportunity of people everywhere. When some politicians in my neighborhood wanted to change the attendance boundaries so African American children could not attend the brand new Little Village Lawndale High School, I stood against it and we prevailed. Those children are attending that school. It is one of the most successful in the city of Chicago.
I'm going to go back to the panel. Are we? Is that a wrap?
Yeah, we started about 15 minutes into the hour. We said we'd spend an hour with Commissioner Garcia. Unless you'd like to give not a speech, because we've done a few of those, but maybe one more quick question.
Well, no questions here. I mean, if we're getting down to we got 15 minutes left. Oh, we're good to go. We got 15 minutes left. Let's
A few questions.
I started with that.
We'll be here all night.
I'm going to go to Mr. Mosley. I'm going to go to you this time. I'm going to start in the middle and work my way out. What do you think? You had another question? Or if you didn't, you can pass.
I'm going to pass.
Okay. Pass it to Charles Preston, our student here at CSU. Question for Commissioner Garcia.
Many students have a history of minimum wage work. Low wage work is becoming an increasing part of Chicago and the nation's economy. The fast food industry is central to this. 42% of Chicago's fast food workers are African American. Do you feel that the current minimum wage plan values these workers? If not, what plan do you propose? Do you consider the minimum wage a living wage?
Mr. Preston, I stood with the fast food workers on the first day that they initiated their fight for $15 an hour. This morning, I stood with many of those workers in their continuing efforts to ensure that $15 becomes the living wage in the city of Chicago. I do so because I come from a working class family. I've represented districts that have been overwhelmingly working class, including many union members, and I think that in order for there to be neighborhood revitalization everywhere in Chicago, wages need to rise. It's good for the employee, it's good for their family, it's good for their neighborhood.
What do you do about they talk about the borders. I mean, we have border cities around the city. The critics of the $15 an hour minimum wage say that businesses will simply locate over the borders, that those businesses on the borders will be hurt disproportionately.
As we raise wages, other people will seek to do the same thing. They only need a good example, and Chicago will give it to them.
Professor Delaney.
You spoke a little earlier about the elected school board, and you're in favor of elected school board, right? Can you tell us when you would implement that? When would it be right away? Like you say within your first year, you would make sure we get an elected school board?
One of my first actions as mayor of the city of Chicago would be to go to Springfield to ask the legislature, to request the legislature to change the legislation so that Chicago can join the rest of the state of Illinois, giving the citizens of Chicago a greater say-so. That is why 90% of voters on February 24th voted for an elected school board. You know who's opposed to an elected school board. Number two, should that fail in this legislative session, I am prepared